Good morning, everyone. We hope you are doing great on this Monday morning. I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7, and I have Dr. James Rouse with us today of the Human Grace Project. How are you doing on this Monday morning, James?
Oh my gosh, Micah, I am doing terrific. We've already had so many people private message me since this morning's segment going, "Oh my goodness, thank you for talking about what I've been going through these last several months." And COVID was one thing that was causing a ton of stress. And then you couple in the election and all the heartache with the social injustice stuff that's been happening before our very eyes. And we're going, man, all this stress, no wonder I've been craving all of this junk food, because stress hormones drive junk food cravings. It's just straight up. And I think everyone was like, thank you for talking about something and validating what I've been experiencing.
You were definitely speaking to me this morning. For everybody who's going to start joining us here, I know it takes us a few minutes to get into the groove of things. Keep in mind, this is your positive break for the day, your positive break in the morning. We want you to be a part of this conversation. Make sure you post your comments, questions, concerns in the comments below. I'll be looking down. I'm paying attention to you, but I'll be looking down and reading some of those questions and comments. And I will say, this was a personal request from Michaela. She works in our assignment desk, Dr. Rouse. She actually told me last week she wanted you to talk about this week. I didn't even tell you, and here we are, because this is something that speaks to a lot of people. Elias says, I drink 6 to 8 sodas a day. Whew.
Whoa.
I'm worried about you. Elias.
And Michaela, everybody, and Micah, James, all of us, I think one of the things we talked about this morning in this segment, which is so important, let's have compassion for ourselves right now. We have never been through what we're presently going through. So our nervous system, our physiology has never done this. And because of this, we're kind of going, man, chips were one thing a couple of years ago. Now it's 8 sodas, it's a candy bar, it's chocolate, it's ice cream. That's how stress hormones work. They really do drive some of the most unfortunate choices. And I think, how do we help ourselves initially begin with the stress? Start to give ourselves some self-compassion, Micah, and say, yeah, you know what? This is hard. And that is the beginning part of helping us to hopefully reestablish some balance.
I want to start shouting some people out who have joined us. We've got Renee. Renee, you are a regular. Good.
Renee is like every week. Renee, we love you.
Yeah, we have Jacqueline who says sugar is 9 times more addictive than cocaine. Is this true? You will have to speak to this, James.
Sugar is highly addictive. So Jacqueline is spot on. It is very, very addictive. And it's so subtle because it hits all these receptor sites that make us feel validated, at the same time increases the engagement and the cravings. It's insidious. It's a tough one.
It is. We have Renee who says, I drink a lot of tea, but I am in the process of cutting the sugar out. I just had my identity stolen, and the stress alone is crazy hard. I can only imagine. I know that that's really tough. I will say I had a really bad soda addiction. I love Diet Coke. I know I've read the stories that say Diet Coke is not good for you. But I've been replacing it. I'm going to bring this up because this is just what helps me get through the day. But it's bubbly, if you can see, sparkling water. I have never been into that. I've never been into LaCroix, any of that. I'm like, oh, no, I need sugar. I started drinking them, and it really has helped curb my appetite and just make me feel better, kind of cut down on the sweet cravings. Because a lot of times, and you can confirm this, I've always heard if you think you're hungry or if you think you're craving something, a lot of times you're just thirsty. And in my case, I found that to be true.
Well, and here's an interesting point, Micah, and everyone this morning. I hope everyone's kind of going, gosh, this is so good to hear today, because number one, I'm not alone. And number two, what can I do about it? And there's a very big part of this, Micah, is that constant stress. And I think what we've begun to notice more and more, we've normalized a higher level of stress. And now that's become normal. We don't even realize it's driving so much of what we're feeling these days, emotionally and physically and mentally. But also, dehydration is a big, big player that happens behind stress. So when we're chronically stressed, we actually become more dehydrated. And that also facilitates deeper sugar cravings or cravings for junk food. It's such an interesting dynamic that we're all going through right now. And I think just being aware of it is the beginning of helping ourselves to make some of those changes.
I agree. And we have so many comments. Thanks everybody for jumping in with your questions and comments. Wendy says bubbly tastes better the longer you go without sugar. Totally agree. George says water is your friend. Agree with that as well. I want to go ahead and get to some really important questions, though. We've got about 3 here. Penny says, how can I keep from snacking on junk food when I'm cooped up at home, unemployed, and depressed? Any advice there, James?
Penny, here's the number one thing. I think when we're cooped up at home and we're feeling the kind of stress that we're feeling, and I don't know, Penny, I'm not even going to just suggest, but hopelessness is a big, big driver for just needing to medicate ourselves with food and to help us emotionally just feel like we can kind of bring some satisfaction in. You know, beginning with is, I think sometimes if we know that we are not having enough of the willpower, or we're testing ourselves by keeping junk food in our house, maybe we be a pantry purge and maybe kind of get most of the things out of our house that we're susceptible to going after, and replacing them with things that we know are going to be better choices. And I'm not even beginning to say, hey guys, let's see if we can just put a whole bunch of fruit and vegetables in our house. But even just whole grain crackers is a place to begin with nut butter, whether it be peanut butter, whether it be almond butter. That is such a satisfying snack because you're going to get protein, you're going to get complex carbohydrates. Here's what that builds. And serotonin is the happiness hormone. And when you build serotonin, it actually helps you to lower your cravings and helps you to feel better about yourself and more optimistic as you look forward. So if that's helpful, Penny, that's a place to begin. Admit that this is going on and then go, okay, what can I get out of my house that I know I'm susceptible to doing? And what can I replace that are simple things that are inexpensive, hopefully, and things that I can begin to lay down that balance?
We have Betsy who says carb addiction is real. We crave it just as smokers or drinkers crave nicotine. And that leads into Myra's question. Myra says, my brother-in-law is an alcoholic who isn't drinking, but eats about 3 pounds of sweets per day. Does this have anything to do with alcohol addiction?
Absolutely, it does. I come from a family of generations of alcoholics. I witnessed it with my family members as some were trying to do their best to try to give up their booze and work through that addiction. All have failed. And I think a big part of this, keeping our blood sugar balance is a big part of all kinds of cravings, whether they be alcohol, whether they be drugs, whether they be drama, digital, all these different things. If we can do something to help us to reduce our stress, and I think one of the most important things that we can do, Micah, you and I talk about this all the time, having a program in your day where, whether it's getting out and getting your fresh air, whether it's making a FaceTime with someone that you love, whether there's one thing that you know that makes you feel a sense of peace and gives you that sense of putting a foothold in some sort of positive thing in your life, when you follow through on that, you lower your stress hormones, you raise serotonin. So between choosing better foods, getting outdoors, all of these things are really important. And here's what's interesting. Your brain lives on glucose. Glucose is sugar. So when your brain is thinking and processing and feeling stress, it's eating a ton of glucose. So the more that we can put complex carbohydrates into our diet, it'll help our brain to feel satisfied and satiated. And that in and of itself is going to give that steady stream of glucose to your brain, help you to manage your stress more. And I think going back to the thing we began with this morning, Micah, I can't underscore this enough. Let's not pretend we should know how to do this. Let's pretend that this is something that we'd love to learn how to do better, and then convince ourselves over time we can. I really believe all of us are trying to figure out this new way of doing a lot of things. And because failure is such a final sense of feeling that brings up even more stress, let us do what we can to lay down 1 or 2 or 3 things that we know we can be proactive about and then move forward with those. I promise you, everybody, I know exactly what you're feeling. I'm feeling the same things. I've got daughters out there who are trying to navigate this in school, in their new jobs. I've got alcoholics in my family, and they've never been more out of control than they have this last few months. This is a tough, tough time. And if you can't find peace out there, maybe it's a good time to take a digital detox. You know, get off the digital platforms, take a day, take a week, and go inward versus facing outward and see how that helps to bring some peace. I think we have to look for its inspiration, not necessarily being over-informed all the time.
Yeah. I want to shout out Heidi, who told me Spindrift, the raspberry lime, is her treat. I'm going to give that a try since I'm new to all of this. Jessica Wilson, her comment was scrolling at the bottom of the screen a few minutes ago, but she says, reducing stress is paramount. Our bodies are asking to be nourished. Our cell's primary energy source is glucose, right?
We were just talking about that. And I think to that point, so we wonder why we're craving all of this sugar. Our brain lives on glucose, and what it tries to do right now when it's being this overthinking. And I think that's a big part of it, everybody. How can we identify the areas that bring us the most stress and then ask ourselves the question, do I need to be connected to this person or this digital platform or this piece of media all the time? And if I'm not, because what studies do show, time outdoors literally reduces the need on our brain to conserve or consume glucose. So these little things that we can be doing make such a significant difference. So that is such a powerful comment for all of us to take to heart.
And that's exactly what Renee is saying. Walk around the trees, get some fresh air. Renee also says she started eating more yogurt and fruit. So, I mean, I think all of those are great suggestions. It's hard though. And I know you and I have stressed this, but it's hard to make these lifestyle changes. I'll say for me, when I give into cravings and I just binge on something sugary or salty, I feel good for all of like 2 minutes. And then I feel not only guilty, but physically, I feel so bad because my big issue is I can go days and do really well. And then I'll have that one day where I get off track, but I pay for it. I pay for it and just like how I feel and things like that. So.
Yeah. And here's a good thing, Micah, for everybody that, when Renee was talking about getting outside, here's an interesting thing. They actually did a study where when people were getting ready to walk into their pantry or open their refrigerator door, if we're feeling stressed when we do that, like Veronica's talking about it here, I got off narcotics for chronic pain in 2017. I still have the pain and now a sugar addiction. So number one, Veronica, God bless you. And thank you for sharing what you've done. That's amazing and inspiring. The pain and sugar go hand in hand, as you know. And I think what we can do is how do we actually look at foods that are anti-inflammatory? We know that sugar is very inflammatory. So the more that we can bring in healthy foods, even not saying I'm going to try to be perfect, but say, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that occasional cookie. I'm going to do that occasional candy bar. I'm going to have that occasional soda. Try to do something alongside of it that has fiber, has some protein, some complex carbohydrates to balance our blood sugar. But going back to this very interesting study, they talked about how people, before they open the refrigerator door, just breathing into our belly lowers stress, lowers cortisol, and lowers sugar cravings. And people who are told to actually just take 30 seconds before they open the refrigerator door. So you're it's kind of silly. You're standing behind your refrigerator going, okay, get present, remember who you are, remember what you want to stand for, remember how you want to feel, and then get clear, and then you open your refrigerator door. People chose less sugar. People made better decisions. At the very least, they lowered their cortisol and other stress hormones. And those are wins. They're little micro wins that we can have in our day.
James, we have a really good question from Denise here. She says, what about keto where you have no sugar except from fruits and veggies?
Yeah, we should do a whole segment on keto because a lot of people benefit from keto. For people who don't know about that, it's primarily a very healthy fat-based diet, but not always healthy fats. Sometimes we get a lot more saturated fats than we should, but primarily the goal is to get the healthier fats, the monounsaturated fats, the polyunsaturated fats. Keto can be awesome for managing stress, and the research is still kind of finding its way because our brain is made up primarily of fat, over 60%. So getting good, healthy fats into our brain is very essential for not only healthy brain activity, but also managing stress. But choosing the right carbohydrates, and this is the part that I think is so important with keto, we have to make sure that we do get in those complex carbohydrates in the form of fruits and vegetables. I'm a giant fan of looking at some of the dark green leafy vegetables because we know Yeah, things like kale and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and other crucifers, they're awesome for keto diets for that specific reason. They help to manage stress. They also help with their antioxidants to build a lot of positive brain chemistry to help us be managing our cravings at the same time. So going full on keto can be good. I'm not necessarily a proponent for that long term, but I think it's making sure that we bring in those other healthy carbohydrates to go alongside of it that bring in the natural sugars versus the refined sugars.
And I want to tell you, James, that Veronica says thank you for some of the advice that you shared with her. And going back up just a little bit, I love that the people in our comment sections are helping each other and giving each other advice. You mentioned broccoli, beans, quinoa, things like that. And George actually gave that advice to Heidi. So I just love whenever we do that on these chats. If you guys know the answer to some of the questions in the comments, you help each other out. We love it. And we just love that this conversation is continuing to build. And we've got lots of thank yous in the comments to you, James, and to both of us for this conversation. We have to go soon, but it looks like we need to have another one of these that's kind of food-based and cravings-based, because we're getting tons of responses today.
Well, you know what to do, Mike, I was just going to ask, hey, everybody collectively, what if Micah and I put together a segment specifically on food? We put together a food list, and then we put together some recipes. Maybe we'll do a Human Grace Project, kitchen project. And we literally put together a food list. We do recipes. We even do a meal plan that's all designed for metabolism, optimism, love, like making our health, love ourselves. And you know what I saw today? Micah, correct me if I'm wrong. This is one of the busiest segments we've ever had. Why? Because we were talking about something that wasn't political. It wasn't divisive necessarily. This is about taking care of ourselves. And look at everyone's rooting for each other. Left, right, indifferent, we're rooting for each other. I want everyone to really just take a moment and say, you know what, we can do this, you guys. Maybe food coming together, the metaphor of a kitchen, and have sometimes over our kitchen tables, we have the best conversations with strangers and loved ones. I think there's a lot of learning I've had here today. I don't know about you, Micah.
Yeah, I have. And I'm just so pumped about everyone who has commented. We've got, I think this is Adilo, we have Jacquelina, Betsy. They are all for a keto conversation or a food-based conversation, some recipes. So shout out to everyone again who took part in this week's conversation. We will be back here next week. We do this every Monday morning we might not be back next week, actually. I think I might take a little break. We will be back here soon. We do this most Mondays, that is, at 11:15. And even when we're not here, even when you can't interact with James and I, you can always feel free to reach out to both of us, and you can watch episodes of the Human Grace Project on the Denver 7 streaming app. It's free. You can get it on your favorite streaming device, and you can catch up on all the things that we've been talking about and save some of those comments for the next time we're live. But we just want to thank you for joining us. Love all of you. And have a great Monday.
Love you guys. Peace.